Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and today I'm going to show you how I painted Thrain the Broken. He's one of those characters from the Hobbit movies. I think he's only in the extended editions and I'm not really sure. But he's one of those guys who has a tiny role in the movie, but he's a lot of fun to your army. At least for me, he was a lot of fun to paint. He had been lying around in my shelves for I think for a couple of years now. I was kind of dreading painting him, you know, because he's basically a very simple dude when it comes to colors. So you want to try and make him a bit more interesting by adding some details. And I'm going to show you how I did it. Just to be sure, we're talking about this tiny dude over here. I'm going to show you in more detail. And there he is, Thrain the Broken, or Thrain II, the once proud son of Thor, the father of Thorin. He was captured and locked up in Dol Guldur, where he was tortured for decades until he finally broke, so that's his name, Thrain the Broken. If you like this kind of content and you want to see me paint more of these guys, please subscribe to my channel, hit that notify button, and please leave a comment. Love to hear from you. So, when painting this guy, I first primed him in a light gray color. You can do a black if you want, so it doesn't really matter. For the face, I started off with a base coat of demonette hide. Because I'm going for a kind of sickly face, purple tones are, well, they're quite in order then. You want to make him look unhealthy. He's been in that tower for so many years, so he doesn't look great. Well, this tone is really approaching that unhealthy look. Of course, we're going to use some skin tones to make it look more natural. And to do so, I mixed some Night Questor flesh and a little bit of Palette Witch flesh into the demonette hide, and gives it a more human tone. And make sure to leave those recessed areas nice and purple, so nice dark eyes. And you can choose to leave the spaces between the fingers a bit more purple if you want. Or what you can do is thin down this paint layer to a wash and kind of blend those colors together. I'm increasing the Palette Witch flesh for this part, and kind of in 2 or 3 layers upgrade that brightness. As you can see here, I completely forgot to paint the feet. He's barefoot, so they have to have the same color as well. I'm doing that on a later stage, but please don't forget yourself. Then with some pure Palette Witch flesh, I painted in the eyes and dotted it with some Abaddon black. You get a nice big eye on the left side and a bit of pinched eye on the right side. I washed the entire skin with Night Questor flesh, so I thinned that down and gave it a fleshy glaze, so to speak, which works really nice and blends all the previous colors together. And then with some Palette Witch flesh, I emphasized the eyebrows, the knuckles, tip of the nose to make him look really, really pale. Now, to give him an even more unhealthy effect, I gave the eye sockets a wash, a thin down wash, like a 1-to-1 mix of Carborough Crimson, to make it look like his eye lids are really looking red. He's really tired. He hasn't slept in 10 years or maybe more. I guess he's tired then, right? Then the hair, Mechanicus Standard Grey as a base tone. The hair and the beard, there is a lot of it. He has obviously not seen or had a haircut in all this time, so it's all over there. Now I've dry brushed some Administratum Grey over it, so kind of hold your brush sideways or try and pick out some single hairs. It can be quite a lot. He's quite grey, so it's nice to have some different tones of grey to create that effect. Now I sometimes choose to use null oil to create some shades as well. I didn't do it with this model because I wanted to have him be a bit more bright, and I'm gonna create a dirty effect later on. And for that I'm using Agrax Earthshade. So instead of the Null Oil, I'm getting some browns in there just to give them a dirty look. And that gives it the shade effect that we're going for. Final stage is highlighting it with some Palette Witch Flesh just to pick out some strands of hair. Then he's holding a blade which I'm painting with Lead Belcher as a base color. Kind of a tiny blade, but it's there. So give it some attention because it's a prominent feature. I'm washing it with Null Oil to create some shades. Focus on the inner parts here where there's some recesses there, here and there. And after that I gave it an overall cover of Agrax Earthshade to also dirty it down. You want to give it a bit of a rusty look. It's a weapon, but it's not a great one. It's probably been lying around there, he found it, and so it's old, it's worn. I give it some sharpness with some Stormhost Silver, focusing on the edges of the blade, where you can create some creases on it if you want, some dents, or whatever you want. I was guessing it wasn't really that sharp anymore, but it's nice to have an edge, right? Then the cloth parts, the part around his legs, I did Thondia Brown with some Abaddon Black, just to give it a nice dark brown look. It's dirty, it's filthy, it's been worn for many years, and it's never been washed, so it's dirty, right? Next part is the top part of his, what do you say, inner robe maybe, or a shirt. Corvus Black, a nice black tone, but kind of a matte black. It's a really dark gray. There's a tiny part here on the back. Then we're gonna add some Tolerant Sand to the pure Thondia Brown and create some highlights here and there. Pick out some details and decide where the light would reflect the most or be the most bright, so you can focus on that part of the pants in this case. And then some pure Tolerant Sand as a final highlight. Only focusing on the very tiny edges, the top of the knee, etc. Gives it that nice extra detail. If you want, you can create some ruggedness, some worn details to the cloth by applying some tiny stripes here and there. Then for the inner shirt I used Ashen Grey as a first highlight. You can go fairly rough on this because it's very close to the previous color. And next I used some Dawnstone for a second highlight, focusing on the edges and the parts that would catch the most light, of course. With minis like these, with a few colors, you want to pay some attention to details. So it's always worth doing so, but for this one it's even worth more because otherwise it would be kind of a boring character, right? There was a lot of browns. So for the cloak or the coat or whatever it is, I use dried bark as a base color. Just pure dried bark. There is a lot of area to cover. And after that, the sleeves with Tolerant Sand. I wanted them to be a bit more yellowy, like maybe it was white when he bought it, but it's really dirty now. He was a king, right? He probably doesn't really buy clothes, he just gets them. I don't know how this really works. I've never been a king. Well, all the fringes I painted with the same color, and then I shaded them with Agrax Earthshade. Again, here there is no too dirty for this guy. You can give him a nice and dirty look. Now in this next part with some Xandri dust, I painted some details on the cloak, and that's the part that makes this character a lot more interesting. Otherwise it's a whole lot of brown. And what you're trying to do here, I tried to stay as close to the box art as possible, think of some dwarvish rune signs, a lot of squares, a lot of corners. It gave me a kind of an Aztec vibe, to be honest, but I kind of thought of a pattern and copied it all around the cloak. And to make it look really worn, we're going to smooth it out a little bit later on in this process. So for now, you can be as accurate, as sharp in your painting as possible. And we're going to make it look a bit more worn later on. Now this is a long and maybe tedious process, but this is actually the part that makes this character stand out a lot. So please take your time and pay attention to these details because it's what makes it look beautiful. So here's the final result of those runes, those markings on the coat. You don't have to do it everywhere, but think of some nice spots to put those runes, and it gives a beautiful look. Now as I said, we're gonna dirty it down a little bit. For that I'm using dried bark again, the base color of the coat, the cloak, and with a large dry brush I kind of faded out some of those markings as if they were really old or worn, and yeah, it gives a really nice effect on the overall cloak. Then with some rock hard flesh I'm applying some highlights on the furry parts of the cloak, so the parts we painted before, the collar and the fringes around the edge of the coat. I used a dry brush that was slightly too big, to be honest, so if you have a smaller one it's better, or use the side of a brush if you want. Don't overdo it because you don't want it to be too bright, and keep the focus on the dirtiness of his clothing. Now for the bottom I'm using Black Templar on the base. If you decided to paint a base black, you can gray it up. For me, I'm darkening it down. And Black Templar is also a nice, really dark gray actually. It's nice and shines through, so you get some instant color differences. You let that dry, and I applied some Administratum gray with a dry brush over it. And I'm gonna take it a little step further. I wanted to give him a base that would fit Dol Guldur, so a lot of rocks and dirt and dust. So Palette Witch Flesh as a final highlight, and that's it. Thrain the Broken, or Thrain II. Well, here he is in all his former glory. I hope this paint guide was of any use to you guys and you enjoyed the video. If you do like this kind of videos, please consider subscribing to the channel, as I'll be making a lot more content like this. And please leave a comment below because I love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Bye bye!